One day I was presented with the opportunity to do radio, which I had zero experience. But when preparation and opportunity meet, beautiful things happen. And so my journey started at Capital FM. You go to the market, whatever the first price is that they give you, you cut it in half. Like that used to irritate me so much because in the States, you go somewhere and exactly what the price says, there's nothing of going back and forth. But living in Nairobi has taught me the art of negotiation, and it's made me a better businesswoman. When you're in media, you see the good, the bad, and the ugly. There's a lot of egos and personalities to work with, but it comes with the territory, and it makes you a stronger person. And I also think online bullying is another big thing. When you work in media, you make yourself a target. So you must, there's an African proverb that says, each one teach one, each one reach one. So when I teach her, she's gonna teach someone else, and it just becomes a ripple effect. And years down the line, we hope that turn your lights down low. Never, never try to resist. Oh no, 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 no. And let your love come shining into our lives again.
Your portfolio is very, very interesting. Your works, and as you've stated, you talk for a living, and this breaks down into your career as you're actually a media personality. Talk to me more about your media career.
So my journey in media, goodness gracious, it started in radio. But before that, I think the foundation of doing what I do began at church, actually.
Wow.
I started doing speech competitions at the age of 13. And that allowed me the opportunity to travel around the country, doing a lot of oratory competitions. And sometimes you'll do activities as extracurricular and you never know where they're going to take you. And so it happened one day I was presented with the opportunity to do radio, which I had zero experience. But when preparation and opportunity meet, beautiful things happen. And so my journey started at Capital FM, where I have been a radio news anchor. In addition to dibble-dabbling in other departments like lifestyle, digital content creation. And that's where my journey with media began. I've done a lot in TV, I've done a lot of voiceover ads for various media houses. That's my journey in a nutshell.
Interesting, you have an amazing journey actually. The fact that you knew nothing about radio, and here comes the opportunity to be on Capital. Could you please explain the feeling, the first day you were on air reading news?
Oh God, I felt like throwing myself on the floor.
Wow!
Because it's just so nerve-wracking. It's really interesting when you don't see something in yourself, but someone else does. And for me, the late Kirubi actually is the one that hired me. So I randomly saw him at Westgate. And so I didn't really know much about Capital or anything, so I just walked up and I introduced myself. And he was having a meeting with a lady from a PR company. And, so I introduced myself. I said, hi, my name's Wambui. If you're ever looking for an MC for an event, let me know. I can host your event. So the lady turns and she asks me, she's like, oh, do you do radio? And I was like, no, I've never thought about it, but people have told me I should try. And so it just so happened that the decision maker happened to be there. And he's like, Kirubi turned around and said, you need to tell me like people have never reached out to you? And I kept thinking like, why? No one knows me. Like, why would anyone reach out to me for radio? So he gave me a contact. He said, go call this lady. She's the head of production. Go do a voice test. And it happened simply just like that. Daring to believe. And my first time on air, oh my God, it was such a steep learning curve because I didn't grow up in Kenya. So pronunciation of names, understanding acronyms, something like KPLC or KCSE sounds so simple. But if you didn't grow up hearing those things, it's a bit hard to connect. So it was a very, very steep learning curve. I had a lot of research and homework that I had to do. But it's made me who I am today.
You had to step and get yourself out there, and that's how you simply got to Capital FM.
Yep.
Very, very interesting. Now, you've talked about not growing up in Kenya, and I do understand that you transitioned from the US to Kenya. Yeah. How was that?
So I think there's always a difference between visiting a place. So my parents, as much as we lived in the US, they always made sure they want us to know our Kenyan roots. So every summer we'd come back, we'd stay with our grandparents on the farm. And it's very interesting. If you meet most Kenyans from diaspora, most of them are not that conversing in Swahili, but they know their mother tongue. So for me, Kikuyu was something that I always grew up knowing because of my grandparents. But now once I transitioned into living in Kenya, I was taught a lot of lessons. Nairobi half life is real.
It's more than a movie, right? Now, the one thing, the culture shock that shocked you, the difference between the US and Kenya, what was that?
Man, there's just so many things. I mean, from traffic, the aggressiveness. A lot of times the lines on the road are for decoration. People are not following the rules. I think a lot of rules are made up. But one thing that Kenya has taught me is the art of negotiation in business. That's something you learn, and you can learn from someone, even some guy just selling peanuts on the road or someone shining shoes. Like the work ethic and the vigor with which people do their work, it's pretty phenomenal. So I learned the art of negotiation, because you go to the market, whatever the first price is that they give you, you cut it in half. Like that used to irritate me so much because in the States, you go somewhere and exactly what the price says, there's nothing of going back and forth. But living in Nairobi has taught me the art of negotiation, and it's made me a better businesswoman.
Fun stuff. What was the hardest name in Swahili to pronounce when you came back to Kenya?
There's so many. I'm almost embarrassed to talk about it now.
I'm sure you won't.
But I think, especially being in radio and being in news, was really hard because you have to change the sound of the vowels. So a name simple as Kandie. How would you pronounce that?
Kandie.
How would you pronounce that?
Kandie.
Candie, right?
Yes, Candie.
So when I first started out in radio, I used to be like, Phyllis Candy.
Because
so that just the transition of the sound of the vowels. So I always had a hard time switching up the vowels. I've done a lot of on-air blunders, but the listeners have been gracious. My workmates are always there to help me and correct me when I'm wrong. But yeah, I don't know the worst pronunciation. Don't even want to go there, but I've learned a lot, let's just say.
Wow. Let me put you on the spot. I want you to pronounce for me this name.
Oh, goodness.
Wepuhulu.
Wepuhulu.
Amazing.
I'm seasoned now.
You're seasoned now. Yeah. I wonder how you would pronounce it when you first moved in.
Oh, goodness. Let me even give you an example. So even like the name Gashagwa. Like if this was me when I first started out, I would have probably read the name Gashagua. Because it depends on how you're breaking down the syllables.
The syllables and all of that.
Yeah, so but when you're in the environment, you learn.
You're coping. Let's get back to media. What is the most impact or the major impact that digital media, as you stated earlier, that you got yourself into digital? What do you think it has impacted you as an individual and also the society?
The reach, you cannot deny the reach that the digital footprint has versus traditional media. You don't know who's seeing your content. If you look at your analytics, even on Instagram, you'll see like one person in Singapore is watching your stuff and you're like, so it's amazing how we're able to cross borders, continents, and oceans to reach people with our story right from where we are. And the power of media is storytelling and being able to create, narratives and share stories that haven't been told or highlighted.
What are some of the challenges that you face in the media industry?
Challenges in the media industry, I think there's a lot of politics. I truly am grateful for being at Capital FM. It truly is a family vibe, if you will. And one thing about Capital, we've always been able to work at multiple media houses at once. They give us a lot of creative freedom. And I've always noticed when I go to other media houses, you'll find a lot of, politics and bureaucracy and things like that. And because the industry is so small, people want to be competitive. So whether it's being competitive in a healthy way or in a very backstabbing manner, it all happens. So when you're in media, you see the good, the bad, and the ugly. There's a lot of egos and personalities to work with, but it comes with the territory, and it makes you a stronger person. And I also think online bullying is another big thing. When you work in media, you make yourself a target, so you must be ready for that as well.
Let me get back to that one. How did you cope up with the online trolls that come with being a media personality?
I think when you first experience it, you're like, why do people hate me? Why do people hate me? But you also must understand that there's still a lot of people out there that love you, appreciate you, support you, want to be a part of your journey. So you have to learn how to just mentally block those negative comments out. Every now and then, of course, you'll get people that will screenshot and send you things. But my moments of being trolled, you just kind of have to protect what it is that you're taking in.
I think protect what you're taking in. Any advice to aspiring broadcasters, Angela?
Man, just go for it. You got to be a little delusional, think big, do big. Definitely do your research. Understand your industry landscape, so even if you want to be in the news department, still understand 360, every single part. So I think the more dynamic you are and the more skill sets you have, the more you have to bring to the table and the longer shelf life you'll have.
Amazing. Now, what's your favorite Kenyan food?
Chapati. Which I think is, the roots are Indian, but I love chapati. Yeah, that's mine.
The one food that you miss from the US?
McDonald's. Well, not really McDonald's, but pizza.
Pizza.
Like a New York style pizza.
Oh, okay.
And I really love burritos. Mexican food.
Mexican food, which we do not have in the country as per much. But anyway, what are some of your personal interests and hobbies, Angela?
I love doing fashion design. So even the shirt I'm wearing right now, I made it myself. So for anyone that knows me or has followed me, I have an extensive background in pageantry. So fashion design has always been something that I'm really passionate about. I love colors. I tend to be a very reserved person, but my fashion is loud and it speaks for me. So fashion is a hobby. Karaoke, I love getting on the mic. I've grown up in a family that everyone's musically inclined. My dad sings. My sister, I call her baby Beyonce because she's a phenomenal singer, Naomi Lamboy. But yeah, I enjoy doing karaoke.
Speaking of karaoke, what's your favorite song?
My favorite karaoke song, Changes by Tupac.
Amazing. Would you do us just a teaser?
Oh my goodness. Wow. Okay, put me on the spot. I think it's easier for me to sing, so let me do Bob Marley and Lauryn Hill. Turn your lights down low.
It's okay.
Turn your lights down low. Never, never try to resist. Oh no, 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 no. And let your love come shining into our lives again. Saying, ooh, I love you, I love you, I love you. And I want you to know right now.
Amazing. Your voice. Now, you're very passionate about humanitarian work, and I understand that you're the founder for Sister Speaks Global, and you have a touch for Heals for Pads Foundation. Would you give us more insights on the two foundations?
So I'm a co-founder of Sister Speaks Global and Heals for Pads Foundation. And so we're a trio. There's three of us, and we started both initiatives in 2019. Sister Speaks Global is a female-centric events company where we create platforms and spaces for women to network, get accountability partners, and express themselves in a place where they feel safe. And we started that, and then out of the Sister Speaks movement, Heals for Pads initiative was born. So Heals for Pads started in May of 2019, which May is menstrual hygiene month. Well, on the 28th of May is menstrual hygiene day. So we had this mission of, we wanted to raise pads, but we wanted to have a fun angle to it. So we would pretty much sell high heels, but for a barter trade system. So I'm selling a heel, but in order for you to buy this high heel, you have to give me pads. So you must pay me in pads, and you can take any high heel you want. So before the pandemic, we used to do pop-up shops, and people would come out, bring their pads, and pick up any high heel they want. So we started with this mission of empowering two different groups of women. One being maybe the university student who wants to get a pair of heels, and maybe she can't spend 5,000 on a brand new pair of heels, but she could spare around 500 bob, 800 bob to buy some pads, bring those pads to us and get that heel. And that high heel she's gonna take, she'll wear it to her first job interview or for a very important presentation, because when a lady wears heels, it gives her a different sense of confidence. So we always say we're in the ministry of confidence. And then also in turn, while she's making that purchase, she's impacting another woman or girl in another county and giving her a sense of dignity. Because now this girl doesn't have to worry about soiling her dress or using a harmful alternative or cotton wool or bed mattress as a pad. Now she has an actual pad to make her feel a sense of dignity, and when you have that, it does boost your confidence. So the initiative is about 4 years old, and in those 4 years we've been able to go to at least 16 counties throughout Kenya. We have just over 22,000 beneficiaries and counting.
Amazing.
Yeah.
How you stated it's 4 years now. How have you seen the foundation evolve and grow? Would you tell us more about the growth itself? Because starting a foundation isn't such an easy thing. Being a co-founder, as you've stated.
Oh my goodness. Just started off as it was meant to be a one-off. And we were just doing it for the month of May in 2019. But I think it was understanding the situation on the ground. A lot of people hear the word period poverty, but do you really know what it means? Hearing about period poverty and actually seeing what it looks like, knowing that there is a girl in Coast who, because she can't afford a pad, she goes to squat on the sand for 3-4 days. Knowing that because maybe a woman in a prison can't afford a pad, she's taken a used pad and washed it and tried to reuse it. You'll meet people that have never even seen a pad with their own eyes before in 2023. So understanding that women and girls are risking their health and their hygiene. In the most extreme cases, you'll see transactional sex happening for pads. Why is a 13-year-old selling her body so she can buy a 70-bob packet of pads? It just doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense. So you'll hear in a lot of different counties, there's a rise of teenage pregnancies. And that is something we want to intervene and stop. Number one, by raising awareness. Number two, by
You've made amazing progress actually since you started from the month of May, from it being a menstrual hygiene month, to now the steps that you've achieved, and I'm very sure it has impacted different ladies across the country. Now, on matters of impact, how has the foundation impacted the whole country?
I think simply by raising awareness. A lot of times people just don't have this information, or they're not aware, or people don't know what period poverty is. So there's a social experiment that we had done one time. We were walking in the CBD. One of our founders and myself, we had worn some white outfits and one stained her dress, I stained my trousers. And this is way before the senator had done it. This is in 2019, we had done this. Walking around the CBD to find out, in modern day society, are periods and the topic of periods still very taboo? And to our surprise, men were actually more proactive in reaching out to assist than women. You'll realize the shaming, ironically, does come from a lot of women. And you wonder why wouldn't someone intervene and help? And I think it has to do with how do we view periods as women, and however we view periods is the way men will view periods, But yeah, periods are normalized. It's normal. It's a bodily function. We should not be shaming in 2023.
Do you have a personal story or experience that drives your passion for women and girl empowerment?
I think all the phenomenal teachers that have been a part of my life. Growing up in Washington, I had a lot of strong Black female figures that surrounded me. And being able to see representation is so important. Realizing that you're a woman and you're powerful and you're making power moves, you're making a change in society. Being able to view that growing up made me feel like I have no limitation in my mind. So there is nothing, absolutely nothing that I can't do as a woman. And I think that's definitely something that impacted my life.
What is the one event for both of your foundations that you do recall that will never fail?
Oh my goodness. I think for me, it's always the drives. Being able to see the actual people that we benefit. There's a time we went to Baringo County. And in Baringo, you know, there's all levels of schools. You'll get the schools that are very interior, some that are more near the city. But the more interior you go, you realize like the girls are very shy. They don't like speaking up a lot. But one thing is we always try and bridge the gap. It's not just a conversation for women and girls, but it's a conversation for the community. And just reminding girls like your situation is not your destination. And I think every single county that we've been to, from Turkana to, I mean, we'll be going to Abuya this year, and every single experience is different. And you learn so much about resilience and perseverance through each and every one of these girls. And, you know, someone told me, you know, a lot of these girls, they don't get the opportunity to ask these personal questions about the changes going on in their body. And this may be their one opportunity. You know, and we teach the girls how to use pads properly. We do a demonstration, then we have them practice. But knowledge is power at the end of the day. And, you know, there's an African proverb that says, each one teach one, each one reach one. So when I teach her, she's going to teach someone else, and it just becomes a ripple effect. And yeah, years down the line, we hope that these girls remember the lessons that were taught to them and how we normalize the conversation on periods, and they do the same for another sister.
You're a media personality. How do you leverage your platform to advocate for issues that entail women's rights and empowerment?
It's an everyday mission for me. Every single day, I'm on a microphone, you know, where I have a limitless audience. So, you know, of course, we have to be very objective in the work that we do, especially in a newsroom. But also, in addition to doing, you know, local and international news, we also have a lot of human interest stories that we do. So features. So when it comes to features, I try and choose to highlight stories or situations that represent things that I do take personal interest to, which of course is in the menstrual health hygiene space, in innovation. What are some of the different innovative things that are happening out there to advance sustainable periods? Yeah, those are the type of things that that's how I use the impact in my field.
As we close, what are some of the lessons you've learned from your work?
Count your blessings. I think it's so easy to complain about what we don't have or what's not working. But when you see how other people are living, you're just grateful for what you do have. I know this has not been an easy year. Since COVID, I don't think things have fully recovered ever. But yeah, count your blessings.
Count your blessings.